In this video we'll take a look at issues surrounding parenting when using the Body Builder to create your own rigs. Here we just have the initial start state of a main route that has been created for us, and we're going to add let's add a single leg, shall we? Whenever you add a part, you get this pop-up menu for choosing a parent. At present, the only thing that exists is the main route, and the main route must always be the top of your hierarchy. So if nothing else, items will be parented to that. So we click OK, and we see that the leg has come in. If we go to rig mode, then we can see, of course, that the leg is indeed a child of the main route. We can, of course, confirm this here in the scene editor. We see that we have the main route and the main route offset, and, of course, the leg 1 main route item there, which is the top of the leg hierarchy, of course ordinarily hidden because it's not operated on, has been parented under the main route offset like this. So of course whether you're moving the main route itself or the offset, the children go along with it. You'll notice that I didn't have to choose the main route offset from the drop down. The Body Builder automatically knows how to do this. But now that we have a leg, let's add something else. Let's add perhaps a finger, shall we? So we click to add a digit, and what we now see in our drop down is we have other items available in our parenting menu. You notice, of course, that this parenting menu is quite short. Let's just cancel out of that for a moment. We go back to our scene editor. We see there are, of course, a great many items here available to us. The Body Builder only lists in its parent list items that make sense to have something parented to. Now, you might, of course, think that it's a little nonsensical to, for instance, have a finger that is the child of a knee. If we come into the fit, then we can, of course, see there is the little finger created for us there, and it is indeed a child of the knee. Again, we can see that if we look in the hierarchy here in the scene editor. There is the knee offset, there is the knee, so if we shrink everything below that, then there we see the finger 1 root item, which is a child of the knee. Of course, the Body Builder makes no judgments about this. The idea is that you can build anything attached in any way. You can have spines branching out of heads, fingers branching out of knees. There is no telling what sort of crazy characters you may wish to rig. However, whenever you add an item, and here I'll just add a head, the only items that appear in the parenting list are mainline items where it would make most sense to have something parented to. Again, here we see that with the exception of the main route, offsets for things always precede the main item in the hierarchy. As such, if we were wanting a finger to come branching out of the knee, we would want it to be a child of the knee, not the knee offset. As such, our parenting list will only present sensible items to us. You'll also notice this division. There are various root items that can be created for things along the way for different parts. Root items will always appear at the top of the list, and secondary or joint items will always appear below it. So that is the main parenting that you do when using the Body Builder directly. The rig fit operation, however, is transparent to changes that you make to parenting. If you are a more experienced rigger, you might find that there are certain very clever customizations that are very hard to do automatically and therefore not provided for in Body Builder, but which you would want to do manually for yourself. As such, if I wanted my finger root item here to not be a child of the knee, but in fact to be a child of the knee offset for some strange reason, then I can manually parent it like this. Notice, of course, that when you are parenting whole parts like this, you want to parent ideally their main root item. You could go parenting off the pieces in the chain, but that would only break the systems, unless of course you're going to go and fiddle around with those themselves, which is much less likely. But even though I have parented this now to an unusual place and one that would not ordinarily be allowed for in the main Body Builder itself, it is still completely transparent to that. When I go through rig fit operations, it is perfectly fine. And so you can parent things around manually if you need to, and of course provided that you do know what you're doing. This can of course be most useful if you later change your mind about something. So perhaps you had initially created the finger as a child of the knee, but no, that was a mistake, I really wanted it as a child of the hip. Then I could make that manual reparenting myself, and again the rigger would be totally fine with that. We can swap in and out of rig fit mode and it will all work without issue. The other place where parenting can make a difference and where you can get in and start doing things manually is with the markers. Depending on what part you put and where you put it, the markers will parent themselves together differently. For instance here, when the finger has been added, you'll notice that the finger marker set have indeed been parented within the marker set for the leg. When the leg is moved, the finger is going with it. Specifically, you see, it's going here with the knee joint, or rather the knee marker, because that is the initial parent that we chose when adding that finger. You will notice, however, that the leg is not going with the main root marker here. The reason for this is most easily demonstrated on a complete setup here. So let us imagine that we have a rig and we have fitted it into a character mesh. Perhaps whilst I'm testing, I discover that I want to move where the spine joints are. So I can grab perhaps the spine root here and move it, and I can move the individual spine joints themselves like this. You notice, of course, that items which are children of the spine, namely the neck, the head, the arms, and so on, are not being moved when I move the spine joints. This means if I've got the arms correctly in place, but I need to adjust the spine, I don't have to adjust the spine, then come back and counter adjust the arms to make up for the differences that I've made to the spine. In cases like the finger, however, and we saw this just there with the knee, it is most common when doing setup that you'll make gross adjustments to the arm, the wrist, and so on, and you don't want to have to be pulling all of these finger parts around with it to line those up. So fingers parent in to their markers, or their marker parents, whereas other parts do not. You are, however, perfectly at liberty to do this if you so choose. So I could, for instance here, take my arm marker, or rather the root of my arm marker. I'll just use the rigging toolbox here, store assignee, and I'm going to pick the last spine joint and parent it. We see now that when I move my spine about, the arm markers are coming along with for the ride. Notice, of course, what has happened to the pair of this item. The left arm has parented in, but now the right arm is off over here somewhere and no longer symmetrical. This, of course, is because these now have two different parent spaces. As such, when working with symmetrical items like this, you would want to parent them both to the same item. So again, if I come back to the rigging toolbox, do a store assignee, come back to that same spine item there and parent it, then my arms are symmetrical again, because they are symmetrized around the parent. Again, this is something that is completely transparent to the bodybuilder. The fact that I have now parented these markers into the actual spine marker system like this, the rigger does not care about that, and going in and out of rig fit operations will still work as you would expect it to. The last thing to take note of in the case of parenting is the ability to parent actual functional parts around. As an example, notice the pole item that we have for legs. If we look here in the scene editor and we find that leg pole item, we can see here it is. Its parent is the left leg root item, so it is an immediate child of the actual main leg root itself. The IK control system for the foot, for the leg, is here. It is an immediate child of the IK controls part. What this means is that when the IK control for the foot or the leg is moved like this, the pole item remains where it is in space. However, when I take the main root here, or the hips root, any part that is a parent of the actual leg, and I rotate it around, you see that the pole item comes along with for the ride. Depending upon the tastes of the animator, this might be ideal or it might not. You may, for instance, say, no, I don't want the pole items to come along with either the IK or the main root, and so we could, for instance, take those there. Again, I'll just use the rigging toolbox, do a store assignee, and I'm going to select the IK controls master null here and click parent. We see that those pole items are now parented there, so they do not follow with the IK controls, and neither do they follow with movements coming from the main root of the character. They are completely external to the character. Or perhaps I would like them to behave differently again, so I could take the left pole here, store assignee, come to the actual main IK part of the foot there, parent it in, and what we now have is the pole item is a child of the IK foot space, so when you're turning the foot like this, the knee points along with the IK turn of the IK system. Again, these are the sort of parenting adjustments that you are perfectly free to make. Irrespective of where I have parented these, you can go through rig, fit, operations, and your character is still editable and still works completely properly when going through different adjustments. Certain things you would not really want to do, such as these nulls here that are used at the toe and heel positions. These are part of the entire IK foot hierarchy, as you can see here in the scene editor. You would not really want to go parenting those out. Their function, of course, only makes sense because of their position in the actual hierarchies that they belong to. Admittedly, little details like this are something that comes with more experience and knowledge of rigging. If you are not so well versed, you should find that the defaults provided by Body Builder are an excellent place to start. But if you are more experienced or just willing to experiment, you will find that you can start parenting different control pieces around to different spaces. And notice, of course, that doing so gives you a different kind of interaction and a slightly different mechanic to the puppetry of your rig. And if you do decide to make such kinds of reparenting, it will work in tune with the Body Builder when you are going back and rigging and fitting to edit your character rigs.